What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's time for another vlog update. Sorry it's been so long, but I figured it's not really entertaining for you guys to watch me go out to the bowling alley day in and day out and do the exact same thing. The only reason I'm recording today is because there's something very specific that I'm going to work on based upon footage that I've been reviewing lately, and I want to bring you guys along for the ride. Alright guys, so today the plan is to work on my release. I've been doing a lot of review of a lot of my video recently, and what I've been noticing is at the bottom of my release I haven't been uncupping my wrist as much as I need to be, and it's really resulted in a reduction in my rev rate. So today we're going to put in the work on making sure my wrist uncups at the bottom, and we're going to also put in the work on staying behind the ball, because you know these new balls, they're hook in a box. There's no sense on coming around them too much, so I want to get my rotation between 30 to 40 degrees. That's my objective anyway. How we're going to do that? We're going to slow everything down to drills, work from the foul line backwards. Okay, so we're going to get started with no-step drills. Left foot at the foul line, right foot back out of the way. I'm essentially getting into my finished position, swing the ball just a little bit, and focus in on that release point. Okay, so there's one entire game of no-step drills. It's feeling pretty good right now, so now I'm going to move on to an entire game of one step. Just backing up from the foul line one step, doing the exact same thing for an entire game. Okay, so an entire game of one-step drills. If you guys are wondering while I'm doing this, am I really worried about where the ball's going? No. I don't actually start worrying about that until I get to this phase, which is three-step drills. So now I'm going to spend an entire game on three-step drills, simply focusing on my release point, making sure my wrist is getting open and that I'm staying behind the ball. Entire game of just three-step drill. Overall, it's feeling really good. Feeling really clean at the bottom. My wrist is getting nice and open, and I can definitely see it in the way the ball's revving. It's to where it normally should be, which is my rev rate usually sits between 450 and 5. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I did some stat tracking last week, you know, the shorts I released where I had tape on my ball, the whole reason I was doing that was to figure out what my rev rate has been and to make sure I wasn't topping the ball with my hand and, you know, coming around the top of it. What I was noticing is I was coming around it just a little too much, and my rev rate was down to 350, and that shocked me. I was like, what? So after further review of my video, I figured out why. I'm going to take some stats here in a little bit when I go to full approach, and we'll figure out what it's come up to. But that's why it's always a good idea for you guys to record yourselves when you're trying to get better at bowling, because having that video to go back and look at is very, very important to discovering what your issues are. Okay, so to start this process, if you guys are wondering, the first thing I need to do is mark out my positive access point. And in order to do this, you really need a Prosect or like a flexible ruler, something that you can use to measure from the center of your grip over. You also need to know what your PAP is. If you've never had it measured, visit your local pro shop. They'd love to help you figure out what it is. So on my ball here that I'm throwing, which this is the Pure Fantasy, for a two-hander, the center of your grip is right in between your bridge. So I used a Pro Sec, and I made sure I was right in the middle of my grips going across, and I know my over measurement is 5 3/4 inches. So that's this mark right here, 5 3/4, and I know I'm a 1/2 inch down, which is this mark right here. The line from the pin to the PAP is where I'm going to put my tape here in a second. So now I've got myself some grip tape, and I'm going to take this tape and start on the pin and follow that line to the positive axis point as best as I can anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. You want to make sure that the tape is counter contrasting color to the ball that you're throwing. And as far as I'm concerned, white tape I think works the best because it's definitely the brightest tape. If you can find yourself some kind of reflective tape, that actually works really well. But I use just white standard thumb grip tape, texture tape. It stays on when I throw a ball down the lane. Now, as far as counting my rev rate and all my stats, what I'm looking for is how many times the ball rotates in the first couple feet of the lane. And then there's a formula that you apply to that to calculate what your overall rev rate is. There's also apps out there that you can use. For example, 10-Pin Toolkit is a really good app. I've used it before to track my rev rate, and it's fairly accurate. The only thing I don't like about that particular app is it actually keeps track of your rev rate after the ball has gone about halfway down the lane. And the way bowling works, when the ball encounters friction, it starts to lose its rev rate. So I like to calculate my rev rate at the release point because that's the highest rev rate you're ever going to have is at your release point. That's also how it's best to calculate your ball speed, by the way. And that app does an excellent job of doing that. It actually tracks your release ball speed. So I use that app to track my ball speed, and I use a mathematical formula to figure out what my rev rate is. So I'm going to throw a few shots, figure out what that is, and we'll see what kind of an improvement we've made. Okay, so I've thrown several shots now where I've checked my rev rate, and it's back up where it should be. So my highest rev rate that I achieved was about 475, no, it was like 478, almost 480, which is good because like I said before, I'm usually between 450 and 500. 500 is my high, 450 is my normal. So overall, I couldn't be happier with the results. All it took was a little bit of time and effort out here, breaking things down in simple drills that anybody can do. Took a little bit of time and effort, but I got my rev rate back. Well guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching the video. You know, making simple little changes like that to your game isn't really too difficult as long as you're willing to put in a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to make those changes happen. Obviously, you have to know what kind of drills to do to break things down, but for the most part, you can work on anything really that you really want to work on by breaking it down into no step, 1 step, 3-step, and then full approach. Just work from the foul line back. Please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.